Hello everyone, this is Satyajit Pattnaik and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we shall be discussing about how to deploy machine learning models into Azure Cloud. In our previous videos, we have talked about how to deploy machine learning models in Google Cloud. Along with that, we have also one of the videos where we talked about how to deploy our codes on Heroku. Today, we are mostly focused on Azure Cloud. As we have already discussed that, let's say we have already trained a machine learning model that we are already excited about, and now we want to share it with the world. So, building a web application using Flask takes around 30 minutes, which I already discussed in one of my previous videos. But how about making the application available on the internet 24/7? Now, after all, if nobody can see your web application which is live on the web, how would you, how people would believe that your application exists? So that's the main idea why we want to deploy our model as a web application to production on Azure Cloud. So we'll try to understand what is Azure Cloud and how do we deploy our machine learning code in Azure Cloud. Okay. Now, before moving ahead, let's try to understand what is Azure Cloud. Azure Cloud is by Microsoft, and it's one of the primary options for cloud-based deployment of machine learning models, along with along with others such as AWS, GCP, Alibaba, etc. Now, apart from that, in this particular session, we will be talking about Azure App Service, because that's what we are using for this particular project. We would be using Azure App Service in different clouds, such as in Google Cloud, as we talked about Google App Engine in my previous video. Similarly, when we are deploying an application on AWS, the tool's name is AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Similarly, in Azure, it's called as App Service. Okay, so Azure Web App Services provide a host service that developers can use it to develop mobile or web application. Apart from this, the developer can use to build API apps or logic apps, which provides integration with software as a service. Okay, it replaces several separate Azure services, which includes Azure Website, Azure Mobile Services, and Azure Beanstalk Services. Gives you a single product called Azure App Services. Okay, now let's move ahead and understand the features of Azure App Service, and then we will go ahead with the deployment part. The features are the Azure Web Services, the Web App Services provides a platform to build an application in Azure without having to deploy, configure, and maintain your own Azure VMs. Okay, so we don't have to have our own virtual machines. We can simply create an application, build it using Flask APIs, put it into our GitHub locations, and from there itself directly we can upload our code into Azure App Services and make our application live, prepare our web application. Okay, so we can build web application using various languages: ASP.NET, PHP, Node.js, Python, etc., etc. They also integrate common development environments, which could be Visual Studio and GitHub. So today we'll be talking about how to integrate app services using GitHub. Okay, you must always remember that you need to pay for the Azure compute resources you use. So we'll talk about the payment structures as well. Okay, you can go to portal.azure.com, and after your installation is done, you'll have to create your Azure free account, get started, and then you'll have to click on Start. Here, welcome to Azure. You'll have to start with an Azure free trial. You will be going to one of the pages where you'll have to provide your details. Along with your details, you'll have to provide your credit card details and all those things. And once you have completed that step, your Azure account will be activated. Now, once your Azure account is activated, which I just activated yesterday, you can go to your subscriptions, and you can see your free trial. My free trial subscription is already ready here. You can see the current billing period is this. I have uh, Okay, so you'll have to fill all this information. Free trial. I have just provided a resource group. I have created a new resource. Instant details I have provided. Then I have provided all this information. My runtime stack is Python. My region is Southeast Asia, and the Linux plan is something. And I think I'm using a total of 210 ACU with 3.5 GB memory, which is okay. So you'll have to go to the review plus create option and you can create your application. Now, the only drawback in Azure is that it takes a little bit more time as compared to Google Cloud. Let's try to wait a little bit so that our application will be created. And then once our application is created, we'll have to link this particular application with our GitHub repository. So we'll go to create option, initializing deployment. You can see in the rightmost corner, initializing template deployment to resource group breast cancer prediction. This is what we have created, right? 5 minutes back. So the deployment is in progress. Let it finish. Now, once the deployment is done, that means our application is ready. But our next step is going to be linking our code to this particular application. So once this is done, we'll go to another step. Let it finish. In the meanwhile, I'll just talk about the code a little bit. This is going to be the exact replica of our Heroku code. If you haven't seen the Heroku deployment, you can go back to one of my previous videos. I have explained about the Heroku deployment. So the code is going to be a Xerox copy of that. It's pretty similar to that. In the Google Cloud application, we had manually renamed this file name to main.py because that was a requirement in GCP, but we don't have any such requirement in Azure. So we have just renamed it to app.py. And rest everything remains same, templates remain same. The model.sav is nothing but the saved model version, and the entire code is going to be same. So the deployment is complete. Let's go and try to connect the code base with this particular application. The code is already uploaded in this particular path. I will also be sharing this particular path in the video description in the video's description part. So let's try to go ahead and link the code to the application. Deployment is done. As in my app is created, we can go to the all resources section. Here you can select the resource you want to select. I'll select the breast cancer prediction application. And then you can go to the deployment center. And then you can see this particular page of deployment center. This is nothing but the app service deployment center enables you to choose the location of your code as well as options for build and deployment to the cloud. So there are multiple options which are available: continuous deployment and continuous integration options. Azure repos, you can connect to Azure repos, you can connect to GitHub, you can connect to Bitbucket, LocalGate, and these are the 4 options that are available. Apart from that, if you want a manual deployment, you can push your code using the FTP operations. Okay, so here we will be using the GitHub methodology. So let's click on GitHub. Let's try to authorize it. So it's asking for authorization. Here I am just authorizing Azure App Services. It's asking for password. And hopefully it will be authenticated. So it's authenticated. Now I'll click on continue. Now you can see these are again 3 options which are available: Azure Pipelines, App Service, Build Service, and GitHub Action. So we will be choosing this GitHub Actions. We'll press on continue. So here the organization will remain same. This is nothing but your user ID of your GitHub location. So my GitHub location is my My GitHub username is pick1989. That is the reason my organization is visible as that. Now I'll be selecting the repository. So this is one of the repositories which I have created for Azure. I have already deployed the code here. The code is super simple. It's going to be a Xerox copy of Heroku. Okay, no changes in that. So let's go back to this repository. Branch will be master and runtime stack, and the version will remain same because we have already selected the Python version as 3.7, right? So it's asking for the finish option. Let's click on finish. You can see these are the information which are available. Source control, it's taking the code from this particular repository as a master user. Build provider is nothing but your GitHub actions, and these are your GitHub workflow configurations. Okay, we don't have to worry about all these things. Let's click on finish. So this particular deployment step is going to take a little bit of time. It's done. So let's go to this particular location. Okay, so I mean, it's nothing but I'm just checking out like how the codes are being connected with GitHub and all those things. This is my GitHub action. So you can check this particular location here. However, here no deployment data is available because anyways, the push is happening through your GitHub actions, right? So you'll have to go to this particular GitHub action in your GitHub location. You'll have to go to the actions, and here you can see what is the progress of your build steps. So let's wait for a couple of more minutes and see how it works. You can see it will definitely take around 10 to 15 minutes to finish. That's the only drawback in Azure. Apart from that, when I did the same deployment, the same piece of code in Google Cloud, it was done almost in 4 minutes. In Azure, it has almost been 4 minutes, but still we are in the step 2. Let's wait for some more minutes, and we can maybe I'll just fast forward this video so that we don't waste much time. Okay, we are already into the last step, build using the app service build. It's going on. You can you can check your codes here. What is happening is we have provided the requirements.txt, right? So whatever applications or whatever libraries we have provided in the requirements.txt, you can basically check out here. The processes are same as I told in Heroku, in Google Cloud, in Azure. All these libraries will be downloaded internally, and then only our model will be deployed. So that's what it is happening in backend. Now almost all the steps are over. Now the main step is going on, which is my deployment step. Let's wait for a couple of more minutes, and maybe I'll keep you updated about the process. Now, if you don't want to go through your GitHub actions, you can also go through a different mechanism as well. Now you can go to your deployment center. Maybe after this, I'll show you how it can be done using different techniques as well. Apart from like when we were in the previous section, right, in the GitHub uh, actions section. Apart from that, there were two more options, right? You can also use the first option, and you can also deploy using that option as well. Yeah, we were in that particular page, right, where we were seeing that app service, build service, Azure pipelines, and GitHub actions, right? So you can also choose the app service, build service mechanism, and you can also deploy your models in that way. So it doesn't make any difference. Let's wait for a couple of more minutes. So in the meanwhile, you can also check your mailbox where your GitHub is connected. You might have already got a mail related to that third-party authentication application has been added to your account, right? Because we are doing this particular step, so you would be getting that particular mail, so which is fine. So you don't have to worry about it. In the meanwhile, as it goes on, as the build goes on, let me quickly walk you through this particular use case. I have already gone through this use case in my previous videos, but let me share some inputs. So this is a breast cancer prediction use case where we have already prepared the model. Everything is inside this model.sav. Not much of feature engineering has been done in this particular use case because our main focus is on the deployment part and not on the model building part. So here what I have done is I have created my model.sav. I'm loading this particular model, and based on that, I am reading the file from the input HTML file. So the very first thing which happens is the load page. Then it renders a template, which is my home.html. From our home.html, we pass on some inputs. So based on that, 5 to 6 inputs are being passed. Those inputs are treated as a new data frame, and it goes to the model, and we do a predict on that particular data frame, on that particular input object. Okay, and then the model's output is basically thrown as a output to the UI. So let's see in the meanwhile if the deployment is successful. Okay, the deployment seems to be successful. Let's go back to the application. Okay, it's success. You can see the message says that the type deployment, it's successful. The status is successful. Let's go to this particular application, post run actions. Everything is fine. Setup job is fine. Building Azure app services. All the logs are being captured here. Run actions is successful. Everything, you can see the author name and all those things. Setup of Python version is also successful. Build using the app service build methodology is also successful. You can see in details everything is there. So it is collecting each and every library which is mentioned in your requirements.txt, then deploying to the Azure app. This is going to be one of the most important step. Here the deployment happens. You can check your particular URL is already mentioned here, right? App service application URL. So you can just copy this particular URL and go. Before going, you can also check your Azure portal. Here you can see that status has been successful. The only problem is that the logs are not visible on your portal.azure.com because we have used the GitHub actions, right? If you use the other methods, the app service build service, your logs will be visible on your screen on your portal.azure.com. But either ways, it doesn't matter to us whether the logs are visible here or there. Ultimately the logs should be visible, right? So let's go to this particular location where our application has already been hosted. So let's just test it, provide some random data. Obviously I haven't beautified this particular file. Maybe in the future videos I will try to beautify the HTML file, or else maybe we can have a small tutorial on CSS and HTML as well. But yeah, we are not much concerned about the front end part, right? We are more concerned about or more focused about the deployment parts. So let's try to submit it. So it's going to the predict function, and you can see the patient is not diagnosed with breast cancer with a confidence of 22.5%. So you can see the application is running fine. On click of submit, it's going to predict function. It is perfectly getting the output from our code base, and it is providing as an output on my UI interface as well. So that's all about the Azure cloud part. The deployment is successful. Now if you want to keep it running, you can keep it running. It's up to you. obviously the link will be publicly available, and it will be, on the web 24x7. But if you want to disconnect it, you can simply go to your deployment center part, and you can disconnect it, just in case if you're concerned about your billing part. If you're just concerned that your link should not be visible to a lot of users, they shouldn't use your application, you can disconnect it. Okay, so that's the reason I'm disconnecting it. So you can see the disconnection of my deployment is happening right now. I think it will be done in 2 minutes of users. So this is all about the Azure deployment on cloud. You can yourself, you can try how to deploy the same thing using your app service, build service. Apart from that, in the future slides also will come up with the deployments on AWS and on Kubernetes, and we'll also talk about AWS SageMaker and all those things. So keep connected to my YouTube channel, keep sharing my videos, do like and subscribe my channel if you like, and please share among with your friends. And that's it. Thank you guys, keep supporting.